This is JILLIANA Ranicar-Breese, and this is part 2 of my interview with the, how would we describe, Sexpert? You're another Sexpert.
I'm another Sexpert.
You are indeed. Laura-Doe, who is going to talk about her former life when she was a computer geek. Go ahead, Laura.
Well, I often like to say that I used to be, before I was a sex geek, I was a computer geek. And I definitely have a passion for geekiness, as in finding out a lot about things in a quite an academic kind of a way, based on my background with my academic parents. So yes, I studied computer science at university, and I went into teaching
in England, in Oxford.
In England, in Exeter, actually, Exeter University. And I went into teaching very quickly after my degree because it was an era where there were very few people with computer science degrees, and most of them wanted to earn lots of money programming. I was much more interested in interfacing with people, and really I think my passion throughout my career has been communication, how to get information across to people. So I was really intrigued by the challenge of supporting people with no computing background, which almost everybody had at that time, no computing background, to understand how to use these fascinating machines.
So you are a pioneer, in actual fact. Definitely.
I'm definitely a pioneer. I would have to agree with that.
That's a compliment.
Thank you.
Yeah. So
yes, so I worked in computer science, I worked in teaching and training. I actually ended up being the senior lecturer at North London Polytechnic, it was at that time, before leaving for Australia. And in Australia, I gained my residency by virtue of that combination of skills, which was fabulous.
Did you head for where? Sydney?
I headed for Sydney, and I wanted to work for Apple because I had discovered, en route, I had discovered the Macintosh computer, and I thought, this is the place to be.
Right.
And happily, I got my residency through my work with Apple, which was fantastic.
How long were you with Apple for?
I was with Apple for all of a year and a half.
Oh.
Because within days of my residency coming through, they actually had to lay off 50 people.
Oh.
And it was first in, first out. And I was one of them.
Oh.
But you know, I was delighted because I'd got what I came for, which was my residency, and I was off on another adventure. So it suited me very well.
What was the other adventure?
I went travelling again.
Oh, okay.
I'd been stuck in one place for way too long, thank you very much, by my standards.
Yeah.
But on these journeys, I had spent as much time as I could learning about sexuality, because
So that comes into anthropology, really.
Wouldn't
you say?
Not really, no. I mean, I had my interest was in modern day explorations of sexuality. Okay. So it puzzled me enormously as a child why this important area of life just didn't get discussed. So when I found teachers, anybody who was teaching, offering workshops, presenting, providing information about sexuality, I was fascinated. So I actually went back to India, where I went to an ashram of Osho, he was called by then, used to be called Bhagwan, and I did tantra workshops and studied this area with anyone who was offering something to.
Did you write anything? Did you write any books or?
No, I have not written anything. I've created a DVD, a sort of a seminar on arousal in people with vulvas, because what it transpired, we're jumping about a bit now, but what I became really fascinated by was female sexuality, because a lot of what I could find, what I could read, what I could learn was still very much based on a model of sexuality, which was through the male lens. And I knew that my arousal did not follow that trajectory that my male partners followed, that I was much slower to get aroused, and many of my female friends were speaking about that. And I found myself studying more and more deeply my own responses and what I could find out from other people about female sexuality as different from male sexuality.
So were you interviewing people, or was it just sort of more intimate, casual conversation with
yes,
friends?
Yes, more conversations with friends who were willing to discuss this with me, and what I could find from the workshops and presentations that I was able to attend.
But in Australia, I mean, people are quite feisty. Women, I mean, you know, they're a bit like Californians, aren't they?
No.
No? Oh, I got that wrong.
I wouldn't say so. I think in Australia, it's pretty much the English model of, we don't speak about that. And I think it's sad, actually, Gilliana, because we feel in modern day, because we've come through the 60s, we've come through the liberation, so-called. So we feel that as women, we are empowered around our sexuality, but we're still incredibly poorly educated about the unique factors of female arousal and how they're different from the normal trajectory in people with penises. I'm trying to couch my terms here because I don't want to offend anyone who has genitalia that is different from their classic identification. But I feel like there are differences, very clear differences in people with penises and people with vulvas, and our arousal trajectory is very, very different. But I think as we've embraced equality, which is important, we've then lost the sense of the importance of our differences. And that, I feel, is part of the issue, that we're sort of assuming that we're all equals and therefore we're all the same. And I feel like in the bedroom we are absolutely not the same.
Absolutely.
And we need to be able to take off our equality hats at the door and really embrace the fact that for me as a vulva owner, I like to surrender in the bedroom. I like to receive. I like to be. I love to be taken in the nicest possible way. And yes, all of us can enjoy that sort of the dynamics of being taken, or receiving, of being active or of being passive within our sexual experience. But on the whole, for me as a vulva owner, at my core, that's what I'm longing for. And if I walk into the bedroom with my corporate coat on, you know, and my ball-busting attitude of I can do everything a man can do, I miss that.
I should think you'd castrate him with one word.
Exactly. And I had to learn to take that coat off at the door.
I think we'll stop there and then continue in part 3. Thank you very much, Laura-Doe.